Hey, all right, everyone. Welcome to our, I guess we'll call it the YouTube section of our classroom, P3 and me. So to my students who are probably the main audience of this, I don't have to explain P3 to you, but in case you're watching it with a classmate or a parent or a former student of mine, welcome back. And P3 stands for philosophy, psychology, and pop culture. So what we do in the class is we take a look at philosophy and psychology, take a look at some theories from those two disciplines, use pop culture to help make sense out of them, and in the end, how does it apply to you and me? Otherwise, what are we studying it for? This is about, remember, and this is for, once again, my students, this is not about philosophic theory and just, oh, hey, that's a cool theory, now I know something for Jeopardy. This is about philosophy as a way of life and how philosophy and psychology is woven into our days every day, whether we know it or not. So what I want to talk to you about today is really to try to give you some insight into the importance of, frankly, every reading I give you and how to utilize them for even what looks like small sections of what we call our anchor films for class. You just finished your project. You had the anchor film, The Greatest Showman, for our unit on the meaningful life and happiness. And in The Greatest Showman, I want to focus in on Anne, the character of Anne, and her ability to hope. And the reason we're doing that is because I want to focus on positive psychology. You had the reading from Robert Diswas-Biener. I hope I pronounced his name right. His seventh book actually came out not too long ago. So if you liked the article by Professor Biener, I just changed the pronunciation of his name. I'm killing the poor guy. What do you want to do? So hopefully, but the professor's book just came out. A new book came out. So you can always check that out. Now, pause for a sip from the Bruce Springsteen mug. If you remember in the article, it mentioned that hope is not a feeling. Hope is a mindset. And it's a mindset dictated primarily by two things. The one I want to focus on is agency and agency thinking. And once again, the idea of agency is the idea that you have the ability, you could be an agent, that can shape your surroundings, that you have the competence to do that, and the skill to do that. So that's all the concept of agency. And in the song Rewrite the Stars, we get a really good glimpse of how Anne struggles to hope because she's struggling with her agency. If you remember from the film, she has the love interest with Philip Carlyle, and they're trying to figure out their relationship. And the great thing, the absolutely great thing about Rewrite the Stars is that in some level it's an argument, but not about do I love you, do you love me, am I trying to convince you to go on the date with me. They both lay their cards out really honest on the table, like I want to be with you, I want to be with you. Sounds easy enough, but because of the times, early 19th century, and it's an interracial couple, Anne sees it as impossible. It's just not going to be allowed to happen because of forces bigger than us. Even says so in the song. We can be ourselves in the circus, but we can't be ourselves out there in the world. So they're having an argument about that. It also focuses a lot on the idea of part of your agency is what we would call the locus of control. Do I have control over my life? Internal locus of control? Or do forces out there have more control of my life? The outside locus of control. And that affects Anne's ability to hope. In some level, Philip's overcome it a little bit. And granted, we could always go with the simple 21st century explanation. Philip's white, and therefore it's easier for him. And fine, but I don't like putting judgments on people and say what's easy for them. Everyone's got to struggle. And Philip's struggle is the fact that he has completely turned his back on his upbringing. Remember, he's a wealthy upbringing. And by this point in the film, he's turned his back completely on his parents. And in the movie, of course, we go, yeah, that was the right decision. But if we think about our own lives, how hard is it for you, for me, for anybody, to cut people out of our lives completely who have been there the whole time and turn our backs on our entire upbringing? Doesn't sound simple. And Philip's done that by this point. You know, he's really claimed his internal locus of control. And on some level, he's going, and the people you think are able to tell us what to do, I'm from them. I'm telling you, they're kind of a joke. But she has to experience that for herself. In fact, on a side note, the very people that P.T. Barnum in the movie is trying to appeal to and be like are the very same people that Philip already left behind. It's one of the great class struggles in that film that I don't think always we get enough time thinking about. But anyway, Philip is very comfortable with his internal locus of control, with his idea of his agency. We can make this work no matter what anybody says. And Anne is still struggling with that. And she continues to struggle with it. And it's kind of sad in the song because, once again, they do admit that they have very real connection. But it's the forces outside the circus that Philip can ignore and she can't. And while the song plays, it seems as if I'm moving my hand as if I'm watching them on the trapeze, if you remember the movie. As they're doing it, she eventually sounds like she is buying in. She's singing the same lines as him, that no, we can do this, we can make it happen. And then as the song ends and the music slows, she goes back to, our hands are tied, it's impossible. But it's more impossible because of the power she's giving those outside forces versus herself. And so she's struggling with agency in the movie. And she eventually overcomes it when Philip almost dies in the fire at the end of the movie. And I would wrap that up in a way like this. She saw a sense of like, oh, I've given into the reality that I could lose you and we can never be because of the outside forces. So that's okay. It's okay for me to admit defeat. But when she realizes, oh my God, this is what it would feel like to actually lose you, him dying in the fire, those outside voices get a lot weaker for her. And then at the end, she's willing to be with him. Not just in the circus, but everywhere in life, and they'll face that together. And it's really a wonderful example of, to me, of the struggle for agency. You could have made your entire project, for example, predicated on that one song and Anne developing her agency. And in some level, Phil doing the same thing. Philip does the same thing. At one point, we know he pulls away from her, and then he rebukes his parents, and he comes back to her. So both those characters struggle with agency. And the more agency you have, the more capacity you have to hope. Now, part of our class is also the idea of the long conversation. And I've told you before, and I really want to try to make this point right now to you. Everything we do in class on some level fits into those 4 roads on the long conversation. This one talks about the idea of salvation. Remember, one of the parts of the long conversation is the problem or challenge of salvation. Not salvation in some religious afterlife sense of the word, but salvation in how do I make my life worth living, which fits very neatly into a unit on happiness and meaning, of course. Now, the idea of how do I make my life worth living plays out because that's what they're struggling with, obviously. Is my life worth living if I give in to the outside voices, or do I claim my space for myself? This is part of the long conversation, meaning people have argued about it for, 4,000 years. How do we make that? How do I make my life worth living? And movies are no different. In 1955, a movie called Marty came out. Very simple story. Very simple story. A man in his early to mid 30s, unlucky in love, would like to be in a relationship, but doubts his attractiveness, calls himself ugly, calls himself fat. I'll never find anyone. And of course, he does. He does. But he's someone who lacks confidence. Efficacy, self-efficacy. Once again, the idea of your agency is tied to efficacy. he lacks that confidence, and he meets someone. He has a blast with her. They go on and they kind of have a first date, and she's a bit homely. But he loved it. He loved the time with her, had a great date. His mother doesn't like her. His friends don't like her. She's not good enough for you. They'll kind of push her aside and keep hanging out with us type of thing. And at the end of the movie, I mean, it ends simply enough with Marty rebuking his friends, rebuking his mother, and going, this is someone who makes me happy. So I'm going to take a chance on this relationship with her. I'm going to allow myself to hope that this relationship can work out, but hope is not based on nothing. It's based on getting that sense of, I can change things around me. I can control at least the space of my life, even if my friends don't agree. Anne is doing the same thing. In a movie that came out in 2017, I can hope to make this relationship work. We can actually get together and work on it, regardless of the voices out there in society, because this is our world, and we get to claim our space. We have agency, and we can claim our space. So we see in Anne, and we see in Marty in 1955, that same struggle to claim your space, claim your agency, which is why we could easily say The Greatest Showman and the characters of Anne and Philip fulfill a quick analysis of hope as presented in positive psychology. All right. Well, I hope that helps you kind of maybe take some time to just focus on even one aspect of positive psychology and how we can approach even a singular moment in one of our anchor films and really stretch it out properly to allow a theory, like positive psychology, to breathe and be explained, not just within that film, but within the long conversation and even a movie from 1955 that clearly had very little or nothing to do with The Greatest Showman other than the themes. All right, so that is it for today. I hope this helped you. I hope you enjoyed it. And hey, just in case, one of the students from a past class is watching, P3, see you next time. Bye.